Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Weezar. We've been joined by Councilmember Marquise Harris-Dawson, Councilmember Englander, and Councilmember Blumenfield. And the first order of business is the multiple agenda item comment period. This is for any individuals wishing to speak on 2 or more items. They get 2 minutes, I believe, here to speak. The first person is Herman.
Well, here's the matter. Item 7, for the record, Mr. Rue. In the application considered for the last day of council, the action, I demand that you hold on behalf of all the coming comment on item number 7. Item 7.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words, fuck you, Rue. Sell out. And then I'm going to go to item number 1. Of course, planning policies, work programs, and operations, and other fucked up items of interest on behalf of Plum. Fuck you too. And then on item number 2, regarding the mayor's relative appointment of Mr. Who the hell I don't care for, I hope he doesn't have a criminal background of teen porn at home. And this is the one of the most important, regarding CD 14, last day for mitigation regarding my negative declaration and objection to the off-site, on-site sale of consumption of full line of alcohol beverages in connection with food market and restaurant. Don't we got enough food in restaurants? And don't we have enough alcohol? Just today at the LA Police Commission, they were talking about the deaths related to alcoholism and all the hit and runs. And yet we continue to push the on-site sale and consumption for convenience of a full line of alcohol beverages in connection with a private club use. In addition to the item of zone variance, which I disagree, to provide a reduced turning radius in connection with the fucking egress turn onto the alley. No one fucking cares. What they care about is stop giving goddamn fucked up permits for the consumption of alcohol. So that way, dumb assholes that go around in their community and get a DUI and escape it like Jose Weezar don't fall in that condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And for those of you who are visiting us for the first time, we've been advised by our city attorney that we cannot ask these individuals to use language that most people would use to get their point across. So people have broad latitude to express themselves as they wish through the First Amendment. Okay, next item is item number 3. We will approve on consent if there are no cards. There are no cards. Any objection from committee members to approve item 3 on consent? Seeing none, so ordered. Item number 4, we will continue to September 19th. Item 4, we will continue to September 19th. Item number 1, we have a report from the Director of Planning, Vince Bartoni. We will receive and file this report as there is no report today. Item 1, receive and file. Item number 2, can you read that into the record, please, Mr. Mejia from
Sure. Item 2, Councilman, this is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Bahid Khorsand to the City Planning Commission.
Mr. Khorsand here. Welcome, Mr. Khorsand, and thank you for agreeing to serve on the Central Planning Commission and City Planning Commission. Yeah, that's it. Said CPC. Yeah, it said here Central. Yeah, I was going to correct that. The CPC, and thank you for your service on various community endeavors. And welcome. Anything you'd like to share with the committee?
Well, it's a great honor to serve on any commission, and quite honestly, it's a surprise to be asked to serve on a citywide planning commission because I grew up as an immigrant here, and so being called to task to serve on any commission is kind of a surprise. It's not something I really spent much time thinking about growing up, but it was something I did think about the last few years, only when I realized, it's an avenue to be an effective voice. and partner with the city in making changes happen.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from our committee members? Mr. Englander, and then we'll go, Mr. Blumenfield.
Sure. I just want to say a few things. I rise or sit, as we do in this committee, in full support of his nomination in the Planning Commission. Vahid has been a real active member of the West San Fernando Valley for years, and he has just on his own time given of himself to make our community better. Is involved in how many chambers? Probably a half dozen over the last couple of years. Member of the Woodland Hills Warner Center Council, LAPD West Valley PALS, Van Nuys Airport Citizens Commission. He's been on my economic development Bobcat, which is what we call the community action team in my district, traffic advisory committee, One Generation Board. I mean, it goes on and on. But I can personally attest, because I've known you for years and you've been part of so many meetings, that you give your all for the community, and you always put the community first. And that is what we need for this position. And so I'm very confident that you'll do a great job, and I want to lend my utmost and strongest support to your nomination, and I urge an aye vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomfield. Mr. Englander.
I too sit with you. And although, Mr. Corson, I don't know that you've done enough in the community. So I take some issue with the lack of interest in civic engagement on your behalf. I mean, you've only been involved in some of the things that Councilmember Blumenfield read in, with the Chambers of Commerce, LAPD Valley Traffic, just like a dozen pages of One Generation, Metro. West Valley Democrats will let that one go. Van Nuys Airport Citizens Advisory. I do take issue, though, with this Business Community Action Team, Bobcat. Bobcat, that's clever, Bob. And the San Fernando Valley JCs, tell me about what kind of group, who would join a project like that? What is that?
It would be a group that would be started by a certain gentleman sitting around this table named Mitchell Englander, who wanted individuals under the age of 40 to become more civically engaged.
Problem with that is I aged out of that years ago.
I'm almost there.
Almost there. Wow, that one hurt a little bit. Might cost you a vote. I've known you for many, many years, and I couldn't be more proud of, since we started JCs together and all the things that you've done and being engaged. I mean, we look to find representatives willing to volunteer and step up, particularly on commissions and committees that impact the quality of life and protect and preserve the characteristics of neighborhoods. It's so hard to find people for the right reasons that want to do it. And I think we've lucked out with you because I've seen your work ethic, but also more importantly, your morals. And really proud to not only vote for you for this position, but have always considered you a friend. And I think it's just great. This is a great victory for the San Fernando Valley to have you step up for this. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I could add just one little thing to Councilmember Englander. For those around the table who don't know, I probably would not be standing here if I had not joined the JCs with Mitch almost a decade ago. So it's that engagement with the community comes from a spark, and sometimes a spark can be close to home, and sometimes a spark can come just from an organization that's restarted to get younger people involved. So thank you, Councilmember Englander, for that.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, so with that, we'll...
just a point of accountability, Mr. Chair. You said you did not think about being a planning commissioner as a young boy.
No,
I just want to know why not. It's what we all aspire to.
I envisioned being a wide receiver like Jerry Rice, and then I stopped growing, and I got a little chunkier.
It's not too late. Hold on to that. All right. So with that, we will approve this item without objection. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in full council. Our city clerk and the mayor's office will guide you through the rest of this process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have to reconsider item number 1. We received and filed the Director of Planning's report. We had 2 public comment cards that I did not see. So we will ask to open that up without objection and hear from Leah Memzik and Rachel Zaga. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Leah Renee Memzik, and I want to talk to you first about the work program. Oh, did I interrupt you? Do you want to go first? No.
No, afterwards. After, yeah. Go right ahead.
Hi, Leah Renee Memzik. Can I go back to my time? Do I have 2 minutes?
Sure.
Right?
Go right ahead.
My public comment?
No, it's 1 minute.
Well, I get public comment. Don't I get to do 2 of them at the same time? I thought you said when they were multiples, you got to do.
Yeah, that was under the multiple
I did do
item
multiples.
comment cards, and
I
we
did.
have
I
it.
did 1, 6, and public,
No, we have it under item number 1, which is 1 minute.
and you didn't get my 6.
That's the rules. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't I get the benefit of the rules?
Sorry.
You had the multi and you didn't call me. I went to her attention.
I
brought
did
it
not
up to you.
have your card
They were
under
all
multi.
there.
I
They were all
apologize.
together.
I apologize. And I have to be consistent because otherwise we have people like Mr.
course you
Herman
have
and others that always are here and they're going to ask for the same type of, aberration from the rules if I do that. So you could go on with your comment. Thank you.
I'm going to help you get a rule book so that we all have access to the same rule book because it's really unfair. I'm 5 years because you don't give me the benefit of the rules that you give other people. Actually, you let a group of people be above the law, and I'm stuck with something that is a perversion of the truth. 1, I need an extension on DIR 2016-2561-CDP-MEL. And the reason I need that is because you don't have your work program. And the work program is required by law, and you receive federal money in the 70s, late 70s. By the way, you're being sued by the federal government for $900 million, plus treble damages. You have a $3.5 billion lawsuit for false or fraudulent information in your planning documents. And by the way, that's what I find. Almost every document's got false or fraudulent information. And I'm asking you to clarify that so I have access to the truth. So I need an extension on that one so that I can submit the true and correct response to it. Can I give you the number again?
We got it. Thank you.
Can I get an extension? You can respond. Legally, you can
Thank you
respond.
very much. This is an opportunity for individuals to give comment on items before the agenda, and it is not a dialogue, unfortunately. If people need additional assistance, they could either talk to the city clerk. They would guide you to who is the appropriate person to talk to and get answers. Thank you very much.
Clerk?
Our next person is Rachel Zaga.
Thank you very much for this time. I didn't know I'd be the first one to represent our area, but I live
I'm sorry, did you sign up for which item?
number 7.
Okay, well, it
1 and
says
7.
here number 1, and that's where your card
Los
was.
Feliz.
Okay, this is, you signed up for item 1, which is the Director of Planning report for Mr. Vince Bertoni. So we'll put your card under number 7, okay? All righty. So now we will receive and file item number 1. And go to item number 5. We could read that into the record, please.
Sure. Item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the South Valley APC. It's an appeal filed by the Macapa Drive Homeowners Association, and they're appealing the categorical exemption as it relates to the remodel of a single-family dwelling in CD4.
Okay, is the Department of Planning here to present on this item?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Will Hewen with the Department of City Planning. I will be as brief as possible. The proposed project, located at 7123 Macapa Drive, is for a major remodel in addition to an existing single-family residence with a maximum project size of 4,750 square feet. The property is located within the Mulholland Scenic Corridor specific plan. The appellant, the Macapa Drive Homeowners Association, filed a first appeal of the entire decision of the Director of Planning on December 2nd, 2016. The South Valley Area Planning Commission granted the appeal in part and denied the appeal in part at its meeting on February 9th, 2017. Specifically, the South Valley Area Planning Commission granted the appellant's request to reduce the size of the proposed project, implement construction-related conditions of approval, and revise the maximum height of the proposed project. The South Valley Area Planning Commission denied the appeal in part and concurred with the Director of Planning's determination that the project is categorically exempt from environmental review, and the categorical exemption is applicable. On March 30th, 2017, the Macapa Drive Homeowners Association appealed the Sql action, stating that the Planning Department improperly relied on a categorical exemption in approving the proposed project. I won't go into the details of the Sql appeal, but I'm available for further questions. Although the Macapa Drive Homeowners Association appealed the Sql action, the Class 3 Category 1 categorical exemption can be used for this project because the proposed project is for the construction of a major remodel and addition to an existing single-family residence. Further, the 6 exceptions to this categorical exemption do not apply to this project as discussed in the original notice of exemption. Thank you, and I'm available for any further questions.
Thank you. Is the appellant here? Who's appealing this?
Association.
And somebody representing the Homeowners Association here?
Yes, Rob Glushan.
Mr. Rob Glushan, are you here? Not here. So somebody filed an appeal and does not show up to the hearing. Okay. Applicants. We have 4 or 5 cards for the applicants. Thornton, Kevin McDonald, David Lopez. You have 5 minutes to present your item?
Yes, thank you. Kevin McDonald of the law firm Jeffer Mangels, Butler, and Mitchell, representing the owners, Lorena and R.C. Thornton. Given that the appellant isn't here, no reason to belabor the point, so I will go along with the recommendations of planning staff. Of course, we are opposed to the appeal, but I would like to supplement the record. I've handed a few handouts to the clerk, and just to address one of the exceptions that the appellant did make in their written papers was that they relied on cumulative impacts as an exception and cited 7 cases that were supposed to be actively under construction within the neighborhood at the same time. So what I've given you here is the latest update of the building department records that shows that only one of those 7 cases that were cited in his original write-up is actually active today, and it's nearly complete. So none of the cumulative impacts carry any weight in the written papers, and again, I won't push it anymore. You have my April 25th letter that spells out in detail why the appeal should fail, so I'll leave that with you at this time unless you have some questions.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody else wishing to speak for the applicant? The people I named? No? Herman? No. Julia Duncan, Council District 4. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Julia Duncan, Councilmember Rue's office. We would respectfully request that you deny the appeal. This had 4 hearings before the Mulholland Design Review Board. It was then subsequently appealed to South Valley Area Planning Commission, where the commissioners reduced the project by approximately 700 square feet and a 2-foot height reduction. This is exempt. It's a categorical exemption. There's nothing unusual about the circumstances. The appellant alleged that there were 7 concurrent projects happening in this vicinity. That's just factually inaccurate. There's 3 that have been issued certificates of occupancy and 3 additional projects that have not gone through the design review board phase. If you have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, for the record, the person who filed to appeal this is not, okay, there's appellant 1. Is it Mitch Menzer? Mitch Menzer? There's 2, okay, there were 2 appeals, right? Mitch Menzer represents 1, Rob Glushan represents the other. Okay, neither of those representatives are here. Okay. So with that, we will move to deny the appeal. Having the appellant's failure to show up, I would assume they got properly notified. We also heard testimony from the local council office, which stands by the planning department's report. So we'll move to deny the appeal. Any objections to that? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a report from the Central APC. It's an appeal filed by George Abrams, again, from a categorical exemption This is for the sale of a full line of alcoholic beverages on site at a property, at an existing restaurant rather, in CD4.
Okay. George Abrams, I saw you here, but I don't have your card. Oh, there it is. Okay, here you are. Okay. So we'll hear from the, we'll hear from the Planning Department, then from George Abrams. Planning Department here to present on this item briefly. We have the reports before us, but it's an opportunity for the Planning Department to give just a brief overview of what this project is about. Item. Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Alita James, City Planning Department. Just a quick background. This environmental clearance was part of a zoning administrator's determination that was heard on May 3rd. The case did, as mentioned earlier, involved a conditional use permit for the upgrade of beer and wine to a full line on site for an existing restaurant. And the zoning administrator's determination was appealed to the Central Area APC on August 23rd. The Central Area Planning Commission took an action to deny the appeal and sustain the zoning administrator's decision and approve the upgrade of the beer and wine to a full line and allow operating hour restrictions, and further restricted the conditions for the outdoor patio to 12 o'clock a.m. However, during such time the appeal was being heard by the Area Planning Commission, there was a protest going outside of City Hall, which some individuals were not able to get in. Therefore, the Area Planning Commission reheard the case again on November 29th of 2016. The appellant, his appeal focuses on the Sql exemption that was issued on the determination. The Sql exemption was a Class 5 Category 34, which allowed for a granting of conditional use for on-site consumption of alcohol beverages for not to exceed an occupancy load of 200 individuals. And as long as there was no bowling alley or a dance hall permit required from the police commission, the project would qualify for the said exemption 534. When a Class 5 exemption, it was appropriate in this case because it met all the following qualifications. The project was under a 5-acre site. The project was consistent with is consistent with the general plan and the zoning requirements, and no zone variance or Pacific Plan exception were required. The project was not located in any hazardous waste site or on any hazardous waste site list. The project is not demolishing a historical resource, and it's not readily apparent that the project was to create a significant impact to the environment. Let me also add that the project did not include any new construction. The request was for an upgrade of beer and wine, again, to a full line for on-site consumption, and this was within a bona fide restaurant. The alcohol permit was deemed to be approved. Therefore, there was no existing conditions which existed. The applicant is raising the issues or citing issues related to noise, traffic, parking, and that the neighborhood is far beyond its commercial capacity, having already a liquor store and 5 restaurants and a 200-seat theater. In addition, he's also citing that the categorical exemption is not adequate, and again, and that an environmental impact report study had not been performed in the area. And based on the 5 findings that I just listed under this categorical exemption, the project did qualify, and the staff therefore is asking that the council uphold the decision of the Central Area Planning Commission and deny the appeal.
Thank you very much. George Abrams, appellant.
What the staff failed to report is that this is actually a complaint against a void act by the Area Planning Commission on November 19th to approve a project after it had lost jurisdiction. The timeline, of course, it began, as she said, that there was improper noticing of the August 23rd hearing because the City Hall East was closed due to the protest. And so on September 18th, after the improperly noticed hearing, was the last day to act. The following day, the 19th, they lost jurisdiction. On the 20th, I checked the planning file. No extension of time to act had been requested by the applicant. And on September 21st, I filed my Brown Act cure and correct demand letter. The city complied with it and held a rehearing. And what they did, they appropriately took action to invalidate the original determination. However, their improper act was to rehear it after they had lost jurisdiction. And so then on the 13th of January, the termination letter came out, and the 30th, I filed my complaint to you, and I am now being heard on my complaint, not just really the environmental concern. All right, and the reason is that the only proper action for you today is to invalidate the improper action of the Area Planning Commission on November 29th. There is no provision in the Brown Act or in the LA Municipal Code that allows for an automatic extension of time for the APC to act on an application when a Brown Act cure and correct action is complied with, nor is there any case law to support it. And the city cannot extend time on its own, for that would invalidate the whole purpose of jurisdictional time limits. And even though the only matter properly before the plum is the rescission of the APC's Void Act, I will discuss briefly the relevant points of the case. And one is that the application, the planning project, is deeply flawed. A 6 full-line on-site liquor license is unreasonable in close proximity to a residential area on all sides of the project location. And open-ended invoking of the public convenience or necessity argument is an abuse of the provision. It effectively eviscerates population standards in the state ABC law. And the categorical exemption is also inadequate environmental review. There are multiple high-traffic businesses located in a 2-block area, a theater and 5 restaurants, all with valet parking agreements necessitated by inadequate on-site parking. The addition of another valet parking agreement crossing Franklin and Bronson will cause more traffic, and it has not been studied. Traffic congestion on Franklin is critical. There are 15 to 20-minute delays to reach the northbound Hollywood Freeway, and the street is clogged for hours. Metro Route 206 and the Hollywood Loop and Beechwood Dash buses cannot run on time and frequently have to skip runs, cheating residents out of the bus service they deserve and to which they are entitled. A supermarket and one of the 2 strip malls were built prior to the enactment of Sql. Subsequent businesses were allowed with only CEs and 1 M&D. The current application, CE, ignores the problem of all these cumulative effects. If all of these projects were applied for at once, it would certainly need an EIR. Now that there is another large project proposed at Western and Franklin, the problem grows even greater, and an EIR studying the cumulative impact of all these projects is what is needed now. The traffic situation in Franklin is part of a larger problem of the egregious error of designating Hollywood a regional center. That massive error in planning is causing deleterious effects for the entire LA metropolitan area. Hollywood was boxed in on the north and west by a mountain range with only a few 2-lane traffic corridors. 2 of the freeways that were originally part of the 1949 master plan that would have run from the Hollywood Bowl to LAX, and the other from Beverly and Vermont along Melrose through West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, the city of Santa Monica, were never built. And the red line is not a substitute for those missing and inadequate traffic routes. Pass-through commuter traffic of tens of thousands of cars is funneled on aging and narrow surface streets between downtown and the west side and the valley and the South Bay. Adding the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and the City Planning's Department drive to create Hollywood as a tourist destination and the many entertainment venues in the area has created a perfect storm of disaster for Hollywood residents. And so the community is in a permanent state of war against a planning department and a mayor who appoints planning commissioners and officials who allow this abuse to occur.
Thank you very much.
We've got more to say. Well, I'll get a rebuttal if
No rebuttals on this. Thank you.
Even if after the applicant speaks, if he's here, I don't even know if the applicant's here.
Yeah, Margaret Taylor? Yeah, Margaret Taylor, for the representative is here. And before you start, Margaret, Leah Memzik, I did find your card on this item. In the future, you come here often, so if you want to speak on more than one item, you need to let the clerk know so that, or submit the cards at the same time. That will help you put you up in front. So, okay, so you could speak on this item after, or if you want, we could take you up in general public comment. Want to speak on this item or in general public comment after the applicant? This one? Okay, I'll call you up when your time is. We'll go ahead and call you up. Margaret Taylor, and then Leah Memzik, and then Julia Duncan.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the record, my name is Margaret Taylor of Apex LA, representing the original applicant in this case. We thank you very much for your time and consideration of this item. We are in opposition to the appeal. We are in support of the determination of the Area Planning Commission and feel that the action was appropriately taken. In terms of some response to the appellant's claims, and as it relates to the Sql analysis, I just want to emphasize a few basic points. Number one, this was a permitted restaurant, is existing and is a restaurant now. It was a restaurant with beer and wine, and we are only upgrading to full alcohol. It was a restaurant with under 200 occupants, and it remains a restaurant under 200 occupants. In addition to that, we actually reduced the hours of operation from what was grandfathered under the beer and wine use, so the impacts are actually reduced as a result of the grant that is being issued. And all code required parking is provided on site, but the applicant proactively volunteered to add additional valet parking through a lease as part of his proactive relationship with the community. So I just want to emphasize that if strictly speaking on a CEQA basis, this is the wrong application to be appealing on a CEQA finding. We are actually not increasing impacts in any way, in fact reducing impacts as a result of the use, just as a nature of the project, and therefore it was appropriately applied by the zoning administrator and both times by the Area Planning Commission. Those findings, in fact, have been repeatedly made. I just want to also emphasize that this particular applicant was very proactive in terms of the outreach to the community and received an enormous amount of community support as a result. Before even filing, we got 983 signatures in support, asking the community if they wanted the upgrade from beer and wine to full alcohol and what kind of restaurant they wanted at this location. And just to emphasize, that was before even filing. And the reason that that was done is because this specific applicant lives in the neighborhood for decades, owns multiple businesses in this neighborhood, as part of the Business Improvement Association for this neighborhood, and has been proactively problem solving in cooperation with the community and the businesses in this neighborhood for decades. Highly vested member of this community. So his number one job was to go out and reach out to this community before even filing and receive that support. In addition, we went through the neighborhood council process, got their support with some reduction in hours, which we agreed to, and were upheld by the Area Planning Commission determination. We did a prolonged site visit with LAPD, and they had a letter of non-opposition. We were in agreement with all of those conditions of approval. So this is broad-based community support, and the concerns and complaints raised by the appellant are not reflective of the concerns of the community as it relates to this specific project that's in question. I also want to emphasize that this applicant has been cooperative through every interpretation that the city made in the Brown Act remedy, in participating in all of these hearings, and it has been over a year since their original grant by the zoning administrator, with the appellant taking us through these successive appeals, and it has had a large impact on a very highly vested businessman. And we would just request that you expeditiously deny the appeal and support us in moving forward with the project.
Thank you. So, Leah Memzik. And we apologize for the confusion. You did sign up for these two items, but you do have 1 minute on each item. Okay, that is what is given to everyone. Earlier, you were asking for 2 minutes in the other item.
Well, I thought just so I'm clear, and I'll take this in my time if you want.
Okay.
it's 2 minutes, as I understand it. If you have multiple, you get 2 minutes, just like Herman.
Yeah.
So I thought I had multiple together, and I thought I was getting my 2 minutes.
Yeah, but you submitted for the item 1, which is the report from the planning director.
Right.
Yeah. And under that one, it's 1 minute as well.
But you don't put that with the other 1 minute? Just
Yeah, the confusion was the city clerk should have gone these cards and put you in the other category with the multiple agenda item.
Right,
It's
that's-
confusing. I wasn't supportive with these rules, but they are the rules, and I just try to implement. I apologize.
as long as the big thing is to have the rules that are accessible to all of us, and
Yeah.
that
They're not explained back there. There's nothing back there that explains that if people want to speak on more than one
But
item.
I put it together the correct way.
Okay.
Patrice was kind enough. I did put it together exactly like Herman did. It didn't fall that way to you, and
Our
you didn't
apologies.
believe me.
Our apologies. Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to address that real quick. So I'm here, as you know, a long time, 5 years. And when I walked in the door, I just thought it was a little problem. And it has gotten to the place right now that I learned that there's a fault or a slide plane moving under Arno Way. It's moving. I found it. I've been asking, there's something going on. I finally find the document that it exists from 2013. I saw them put in a new one in February 2016, but no one will give the updated report. So you have a whole hill, a whole bluff moving, and you're not dealing with it. And you have the opportunity to fix it because you have a coastal development permit application being submitted, and all the records should be there for everyone to comment, and you're trying to give it a categorical exemption, which isn't possible if you have a moving landslide that broke the slope indicator. It broke it. Done. So what's going on? Now your sewers have broken, you've got multiple lawsuits, something's really grave going on, and I'm asking for a little pause so we can make sure that all the records are there and nobody gets hurt, because it looks like people are going to be hurt, and that the city doesn't have to spend any more taxes on lawsuits, so we don't have to have our taxes raised. And so the next time the feds come and sue the city of Los Angeles, you don't lose. We want you to win, because that's a lot of money that you'd have to pay out. So anyway, thank you for taking care of that last minute, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And if somebody could help with that slope indicator, and I'll get it to
Thank you.
Vince.
Okay. Julia Duncan from Council District 4. That was 6. Thank you. Julia Duncan from Council District 4.
Good afternoon, Julia Duncan, Councilmember Rue's office. First and foremost, we would like to thank the applicant, Greg Morris, and his team who did such incredible outreach on this project over almost a 2-year period now. This has been so incredibly time-consuming and expensive for this small business owner. We would request you deny the appeal. The project is categorically exempt under the Class 5 Category 34 for alcohol sales ancillary to a full-service restaurant under 200 seats. This is it was a grandfathered-in restaurant, a conditional use for beer and wine, and had no conditions of approval. The proposed project is for 110 patrons and 12 bar seats with approximately 20 patrons, in addition to conditions of approval with limited hours of operation on the patio, noise, valet parking, on-site parking as provided by code. There's no reason this project would not be categorically exempt, and we would like to thank the applicant for the time he's spent. He's a great business owner. He owns several other businesses in our district, and we're thankful for the employment opportunities he brings to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this? See no questions? Okay.
I'd like to rebut a statement that the applicant made.
Sir.
Do so?
Pardon me. No, your time is up, sir. I'm sorry. We cannot take any more public testimony. Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to deny the appeal. Any objections to that? So ordered. Thank you. Item number 7.
Item 7, Councilman, these are 2 appeals filed by Ann Whitford Paul and Oscar and Nila Arslanian from the action of the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners, approval to export 9,800 cubic yards of earth for property located at 2937, 2945 Glendower Avenue in CD4.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Dina, Building and Safety. This item was heard on July 25th, and it was approved with 13 additional amendments.
including the addition of 11 flag attendants, and also the limiting of the hours to avoid trash pickup days, and the changing of the number of allowed days, additional workers to water down the site, etc. And we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Just before you go on, you said you added, were there additional mitigations to this route that were added from the normal procedure?
Yes, so there were 13 that were added.
What were those?
So that includes the hours of operation were limited to 10 to 3, Mondays through Wednesdays, and on Friday. So we are not allowing Thursdays because that's the trash pickup time. Also, there is no parking for construction vehicles allowed. Generally, we don't include anything regarding construction in our board approvals. We had initially 4 flag attendants. Now we're having 11 flag attendants. An additional worker will be on site to water down the site continuously. Phone number for neighborhood to contact at any given time. Parking not, for construction workers only on site, and all other workers will be shuttled to the property. No dumpsters, even permit, so they're not allowed to obtain permits for street dumpsters for this project. No music is allowed, and the applicant is to contact all interested parties from the neighborhood if any large deliveries are made. Generally, these are not conditions in our approvals, but we added them at our hearing.
Yeah, thank you. And are you aware if there's any other haul routes nearby that would cross this haul route at all, or any other construction that's requiring some haul routes?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we'll first hear from the appellant. We have 2 appellants, Oscar Arzanian and Naila Arslanian, and each of you, no, you're one appellant.
Point appeal, and there's another appeal by Ann Whitford Paul.
And Whitford Paul here? You're here. Did you fill out a card? You did? Okay. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Oscar Arslanian.
Both of you do. Together, the 5 minutes. Together 5, yes. Go right ahead.
I'm Oscar Arslanian. I live at 2489 North Edgemont Street. That's the property directly below the property that we're contending about. Well, a property owner wants to embark on a massive construction project it's an indisputable fact that the 2 properties, his property above mine and mine directly below him, are integrally bound, and any earth-moving projects above places on the downslope property are in serious jeopardy. That's my property. In reviewing the soils report, there's no analysis of the soil condition of our property at 2489 North Edgemont. When we purchased the property in 1973, it was massively overgrown, so much so that the condition of the hillside was hidden. Following the purchase, we began clearing, and when the overgrown foliage was removed, we were startled to see that a massive landslide had occurred. Walkways were covered, pipes jutting in the air. We were told that the shoring up of the affected area would be the only thing that would keep the hill in place. So for 44 years, we've been shoring up the hill. And repeatedly small landslides have been a continual occurrence. Visible earth movement can be seen in the footing of the current retaining wall constructed sometime after the large slide has been exposed. There's evidence of earth movement on Edgemont Street and our neighbor's large driveway directly below us. While assurances have been made that the building and the retaining walls will stabilize the property, the plan to return the hill to a slope, removing terracing and plantings that are presently on the property, which has kept that hill in place, is a major concern. We've requested a guarantee that the proposed grading, retaining walls, the retaining wall scheme, the plantings, the catch basin, water pumps will have no detrimental effect on our property or on our home. We've requested a guarantee in writing. Extreme caution and research regarding spores and other conditions caused by earth movement should be a concern for all properties. Until such occurrences, such a time that these assurances are provided, responsibility accepted and liability assumed by all properties including the City of Los Angeles, for permitting such a project, we respectfully request that the haul route approval be denied and no grading permit issued.
Council members, as you can see from the photographs above you, I ask you just to take a tour of our property and its relationship to the proposed building and excavation site. Our home on Edgemont Street was built in 1928, and the house above us in 1951. Although we have lived in our home for 44 years, we have never seen the backyard of 2937 Glendower until recently, through Google and satellite images, we had a glimpse of the cement block walls, which you see before you. We had no idea of the extensiveness of these walls. You can clearly see from these images the amount of work that was done on that property to hold that hill in place. That's the hill directly above us. Our hill is even more steep. From 1928 to approximately 1950, there were no issues regarding the hill. Our home is built on bedrock, and while the slope is steep, walkways in a grape arbor that had been constructed were removed because of a landslide. Now, we've let the people know. We did receive notification in September 6th of last year that there was going to be a demolition of the properties above us. That was the only notification we received. And I received a reply that said, right now we are still, this is a quote, right now we are still in the early stages of the permitting process. When we get closer to a final design, we can show you the plans for the project, the grading and hillside remediation, and be in a better position to show you exactly what measures will be taken to address all of these concerns. We received no notification until we received a notification of a haul route. I met with Chaz Dean, the owner, and his team last week, and addressed all of these concerns with him. I also visited the site above Sunset Boulevard that the builder said was similar to our situation, and it was not similar. The steepness of the slope was not similar. The activity that has occurred in the past was not similar. The house and the project was similar. I have no doubt that the house will be very, very secure, but not the hill. It's incomprehensible that the rights of this property owner supersedes the rights of other property owners in the neighborhood, and we stand with the other members of our community, over 200 of them, to oppose the haul route and ask that our appeal be upheld. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Yes, so your time is up, sir.
I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge CD4 for their work with us, especially Julia Duncan, in helping us mitigate this project.
Thank you. And Whitford Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to appeal the Department of Building and Safety approval of the haul route on Glendower Avenue. I speak for myself and for over 200 people who signed petitions in the neighborhood opposing this haul route. We ask, the people who signed this petition ask that the haul route be, that the scope of the project be reduced. Right now it's 8,500 cubic yards of dirt to be removed from the hillside, and we ask that it be reduced to 4,500 cubic yards. The haul route winds down narrow, curvy, substandard roads and will last over 85 days at 4 days a week. That's 20 trucks a day, or one 10-wheel dump truck every 15 minutes. This does not include the extra days for the removal and demolition of the two houses already on the site, or the transportation of construction materials later. Many homes on this route have retaining walls coming up to the curb, and about a third of the roadway has no sidewalk, obviously posing a danger to cars, trucks, pedestrians, pets, Both the street is so narrow that frequently we have to stop, pull over, back up in order to let opposing cars come down. The haul route is in a red flag zone. How much will fire trucks and ambulances be slowed down, putting not only residents, but this is right under the shadow of Griffith Park and the observatory, which I think we all agree is a special thing to our community. Catalina is a feeding street for 4 other roads coming down the hills to Los Feliz Boulevard. These trucks will turn on Los Feliz. Los Feliz is heavily trafficked. It connects the 5 freeway to Hollywood. There have already been accidents at this intersection, including a fatal one. We request that maybe a traffic light be installed for traffic safety. In addition, Catalina and Glendower are old and badly damaged roads with ancient infrastructure. Can they truly support 10 tons that the dump trucks will be carrying down? We understand that Chaz Dean, the builder, must put up a bond for street damage, but we know that goes into a general city fund, and we will be left with our damaged streets. Would Chaz be willing to put up a separate bond to fix the streets that his trucks have damaged? And heaven forbid the ancient water and sewer pipes below this road. Who will foot the bill when those break? I'd like to close by addressing what I consider the 800-pound gorilla in the room regarding this haul route. We would not be debating this issue at all if it were not for the humongous size of this proposed house. 4 times the average size of houses in the neighborhood. At our first meeting, we were told that this house would be a mere 13,000 square feet. When finally shown plans, the builder admitted that it would be 17,500. You've heard about the concessions that Mr. Dean has already made, for which we are grateful. However, these concessions, as you heard, were mainly related to traffic and times of trucks. The only concession to size was the removal of 1,000 square foot. Now, if you have a pie with 17 pieces in it, and you remove 1 piece, you still have a lot of pie left, and his house will still be huge. It will be 5,000 square feet bigger than the largest home in Los Feliz, which the largest home is built on 2 flat acres. This home, as you've heard, will be built on an unstable hillside. If Mr. Dean were applying to build a house of this size today, he would be turned down thanks to the new hillside and anti-mansionization ordinances. Some of you may be familiar with this line of poetry, "No man is an island, entire of itself."
Your time is up. Yeah, so if you could wrap up your sentence there.
I can wrap up.
Is there a buzzer on that clock? It's not working? Okay. Thank you. Sir, you're out of order, sir. Sir,
Excuse me, I'm placing
sir, you are out of order. You just cannot come up here and say, officers, can you escort this individual out of this meeting, please? It doesn't matter if he's objecting. I try to correct him and explain the rules, and he obstructed the meeting by raising his voice at the committee. And I'm asking him to. Thank you very much. From the applicant, we have a number of individuals here. Ben Resnick, Daniel Friedman, John Rizuka, Zakia Payne, Jason Summers, Tony Russo, and Chaz Dean. How do you wish to use your 5 minutes? All speak within these 5 minutes, or do you want who's using the 5 minutes up as the applicant, and then others have 1 minute? How would you please wish to work these?
Councilman, if we could have 5 minutes for our presentation, and then each of those speakers after have 1 minute, we can try and make it quick.
And so Daniel Freeman's taking the 5 minutes.
That's
You
right.
are taking. Okay, go right ahead.
Council members, members of Plum, thank you so much for being here and for hearing us today. My name is Daniel Friedman. I'm an attorney with Jeffrey Mangles, Butler, and Mitchell here representing the applicant. I'm here to primarily give you a little bit of background on this project so you can understand where this is coming from and to let you know a little bit about how we got to where we are today. First off, this has been a 4 years in the making project. Chaz Dean, who's going to be living in this house, who's building this house, he's a small business person in Los Angeles. He's building his dream house. He conceptualized this house 4 years ago, and about a year ago he filed for plan check. And then, excuse me. On June 6th, there was the first haul route hearing on this project. It was continued so they could work with the community. On June 20th, there was a second haul route hearing on this project. Again, it was continued. On June 30th, there was a community meeting. At this community meeting, Chaz and the project team worked with the community, and they agreed to reduce the house by 1,000 square feet and agreed to reduce the hauling by from 9,800 cubic yards to 8,500 cubic yards. On July 19th, there was another community meeting where they formulated a whole host of additional conditions of approval. If you recall, the building and safety staff mentioned that there was 13 additional conditions of approval required on this project beyond the standard conditions of approval they normally require. One of those conditions of approval, which I think is important, is that this project is going to be provided with 11 flag persons. 11 flag persons. So let me give you that in kind of context. There was a haul route that was approved about 2 weeks ago for 49,000 cubic yards in the Westwood area that has 3 flag persons. This is 8,500 cubic yards. This has 11 flag persons. Why is that? Because this applicant was willing to do anything he possibly could to work with this community and be a good neighbor. 3 of the flag persons, 3 of these 11 flag persons are specifically positioned in front of certain residences. So we have 3 flag persons who are basically taking care of 3 residences. A whole host of other conditions of approval were required and agreed to by the applicant, including restricted hauling hours. I think it's important to note that this is restricted to 4 days a week. So the applicant agreed to avoid the days that the trash trucks are going up and reduced to 10 to 3 p.m. Work hours, school hours, most people in the neighborhood won't even know this is going on. There's also parking restrictions to keep people from, keep members of the project team, to keep construction workers from parking in the community. There's also staging requirements. There's requirements for deliveries that there be flag persons. And there's also requirements for notification. Eventually, this project and this haul route was approved by the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners unanimously. It also included support from staff. And we were surprised that there was an appeal, but there was an appeal, and that's how we came to you today. And as part of that appeal and part of that process, there was an ongoing discussion with Julia Duncan and CD4 about what can be done to help mitigate concerns of the community. The applicant, our client, has always been concerned about what he could do to work with the community. In that process, the council office worked with community and asked the applicant, our client, to agree to some additional conditions of approval. Again, in the willingness to be a good neighbor, our client agreed to all of them. We submitted those to you in a correspondence that we submitted, and I know the council office submitted them in a revised approval. Finally, I want to just conclude and mention kind of what we think the real issue is here. And I think the appellants made it very clear. This is a mansionization issue. This is a concern about oversized homes in the hills. The haul route approvals are not about that. The haul route approvals are about making sure that hauling is conducted safely. And conditions of approval are required by building and safety to assure that. We have haul routes happening all over the city, in hillsides all over in different council districts where they're being performed safely, with flag persons, with conditions of approval that are requiring that they can happen and they do not cause adverse impacts to the community, particularly when it comes to safety and endangering public health. We think the conditions of approval that were required here go far and above and beyond the standard conditions of approval that are normally required on projects that are vastly bigger. We hope that you understand that this applicant did everything he could to work with the community and come to a consensus and produce conditions of approval that are reasonable for the scale of the project. Thank you for your time, and we'll have members of the project team that are here to address your concerns or any questions you might have.
Great, thank you very much. Before we do that, Julia Duncan, do you wish to address now or after? Now, okay. Julia Duncan from Council District 4.
Good afternoon, Julia Duncan, Councilmember Rue's office. I've been actively involved with this project and attended several Board of Building and Safety Commissioner hearings held over the past few months in relation to the haul route for this project. At that time, our office requested the hearing be continued so we could sit down with concerned neighbors and the applicant. We've held 2 such meetings at our Hollywood office. Attendees included the Los Feliz Improvement Association president, president of the Hillside Federation, and neighbors who live on Glendower, as well as the owner of the proposed project and his construction team. During these meetings, numerous items came to light, specifically the mass and scale of the property and quantity of grading. Unfortunately, these 2 issues are not within the jurisdiction of the board, and because the project was submitted prior to March 17th, 2017, it was grandfathered under the BHO and not subject to the new, more stringent BHO rules. However, the continuance afforded our office the opportunity to sit down with the applicant and neighbors in a good faith effort to address concerns related to the haul route. The intentions of these working group meetings were to come up with compromises that were suitable for the neighbors. The applicant's project is by right. What this means is that the scope and size of the home is compliant with the underlying zone and the BHO, which includes the quantity of grading. Through these meetings, numerous site-specific conditions of approval were agreed to. I'm going to run through them real quickly. Reductions of the total export amount. We began at 9,800 cubic yards, and it has now been capped to 8,500 cubic yards. No hauling is allowed on Thursdays, trash days. They prepared and submitted a construction management plan to outline a rough timeline of the full project. They prepared a staging plan to show staging of trucks and materials. Require a designated laborer to water down the site continuously during construction. Provide a phone number of the on-site superintendent. Parking for construction worker vehicles was allowed on-site only. Staging for hauling vehicles is allowed on-site only. And will not interfere with traffic or access to neighboring driveways. Dumpsters must be placed on site and not adjacent to the site in the public right-of-way. No music on site. An additional 7 additional flag attendants for a total of 11. And prior to the grading of any kind, because of environmental sensitivity issues, the applicant shall amend the soils and air quality report to test for evidence of valley fever, which was a specific request of one neighbor. Those were all conditions included in the original Board of Building and Safety report approval. Since that time, there were 13 additional new conditions of approval that are included in the updated board report that was circulated. If you have any questions, I'm available, but we would request that with these modified conditions, the appeal be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. John Ruzicka, Zaga Payne, and Jason Summers, 1 minute.
Good afternoon. My name is John Ruzicka. I'm the project architect. I'm a partner with the Bowery Design Group. I've known Chaz for nearly 4 years now, and I know him to be a very kind and considerate individual. I know he's very conflicted right now, as by no means does he want to inconvenience any of his neighbors. At the same time, Chaz is an artist and is very proud of the home we've designed together. We've worked hard to create a home that is everything he's ever dreamed of, and he's anxious to see it realized. At this late date, he feels that we've been very amenable to the concerns of the neighborhood, and we've made fair concessions to reduce our impact. We ask that you consider these concessions to a by-right project to be deemed sufficient and deny the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Zaga Payne, Jason Summers.
Good afternoon. My name is Zaga Payne. I'm with Boswell Construction. We are the general contractor we are leading the pre-construction for the project and subsequently the construction for the project. As part of the pre-construction, we work to address all of the complexities very early on, as well as assist with the neighbor outreach and listening to the neighbors and their concerns. We are aware and agree with all of the mitigation measures that have been put in place, and going forward, I will personally be involved with the project on a day-to-day basis, making sure that all of the conditions are met daily, and we are in compliance daily. I have made and will continue to make myself readily available to each of the neighbors and all interested parties to keep them updated on the project and address any of their concerns throughout construction.
you. Jason Summers, Tony Russo.
Hello, Commissioners. This project has been in design for 4 years, as we had mentioned. This project, out of many projects that our firm has worked on, has gone above and beyond to really make sure that we're taking into account as many conditions as possible to mitigate construction impacts on the sites. It's also noted that at the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners hearing, we had a unanimous support of the project, and we're trying to do everything possible to make this a by-right project that's already been through plan check and for the most part, and we hope to start construction soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there? You pardon me? Okay, Chaz Dean, wave. Ben Resnick, first time. You always have something to say. Rachel Zaga, Marion Dodge, Joseph Kleiman.
Thank you to the members for hearing our appeal. As we've said, there are over 200 people who signed the petition. Not all 200 of them, and not nearly that many were involved in the preparation of the mitigation issues that they described. At its basis, the mitigation as it's been prepared is insufficient. The damage to these streets is going to be substantial. Catalina and Glendower are narrow, substandard streets, 20 feet or under. They have retaining walls and foliage right down to the street. Those things are going to be harmed by the amount of traffic that's going to be on them. There are several feeder streets for which Catalina is the primary venue to get in and out of Los Feliz. Los Feliz is now a major artery traveling back and forth east and west between Hollywood and Glendale. I think it's being a little bit questionable whether these mitigation standards were sufficient to address the issues. The question is really whether this is not something that's out of standard for the community as a whole, and whether the health and safety of the members of the community and other property owners along the route has been sufficiently considered. We would argue that that has not been done, and that nothing at the scale of this is going to be sufficient to address the health and safety issues and the traffic issues specifically in regard to the damage to the street. I have very briefly one picture to show you of sewer damage from
Your time
2015.
is up, sir.
Thank you for taking so little time to listen.
Thank you. Marion Dodge and then Rachel Zaga.
I'm Marion Dodge, Chairman of the Hillside Federation. The Hillside Federation opposes the removal of 8,500 cubic yards of earth from the Glendar property and the use of a haul route down Catalina Street. The Planning Department carefully crafted the baseline hillside ordinance to provide for development in the hillsides while preserving as much of the natural topography as possible. This project calls for the removal of 8,500 cubic yards of earth, approximately 3 times the amount permitted. Approval of this amount of excavation makes a mockery of the BHO. It will have a devastating impact on the hillside below Glendower Avenue, where there's a history of landslides. Much of the excavation is due to the construction of 3 swimming pools and a spa. If there were only 1 swimming pool, it would greatly reduce the amount of earth. And why does an applicant need 3 swimming pools? The haul route would take trucks down Catalina Street, a winding substandard street where two-way traffic is impossible. The Federation urges you to deny this excavation and haul route application. The applicant should go back to the drawing board and design a project that is in full compliance with the baseline hillside ordinance.
Thank you. Rachel Zaga, Jackie Schwartz, Maury Zaga.
Hi, I'm Rachel Zaga. I've lived in the area for 38 years. I'm just 4 houses away from Catalina. And thank you, the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. So it's great that I'm going to talk to you about infrastructure. And if you could please look at the images, Google them or whatever, and look at our area when you have a moment. And you'll see how close we are to the park and the observatory. Our area is a historical site. The old roads are not built to carry the weight in these trucks. A full load carries 10 cubic yards of dirt. Each cubic yard weighs 1.35 5 tons, so each fully loaded truck carries the weight of approximately 5 cars. Our roads are already in poor conditions. If you hike up to the park, you trip over the sidewalks that are broken. This is what I'm talking, and we have a lot of tourists and visitors who go through our area up to the park all the time. Who will pay for this damage to the roads and
Thank
our
you.
curbs?
Your time is up. I'm sorry. And usually the buzzer there works so that people are warned, told about when the 1 minute expires, but it's not working today. Jackie Schwartz, Maury Zaga, Melinda Peters.
We're just continuing on little bits of this. Los Feliz is the connector from the 5 freeway to Hollywood, and it's very heavily traveled throughout the day. In fact, our traffic is outrageous as it is now. I want to just say something that's not here on my sheet. I am the community. I was never informed of this project. Never. So when they say they reached out to the community, who did they reach out to? Because it wasn't me. There's no traffic light at the intersection where they will be going through, and there needs to be one. We as residents don't even use going down to Los Feliz Boulevard because it's so dangerous to try and turn left down there that we have to use back streets, which these trucks will probably be also doing. Anyway, we request a traffic light at Catalina and Los Feliz Boulevard.
Thank you. Maury Zaga, Melinda Peters.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving us the time. I'm Maury Zaga. I live on Bonneview, 4 houses away from Catalina. Lived there for 38 years. I'm going to continue with some of the points that we're concerned about. Safety of the pedestrians. The sidewalks, as already been pointed out, are typically one-sided and some streets have none. Increased traffic will be a threat to the walkers, to the kids, to the dogs. Emergency vehicle access is, I don't know how they can even get up there. As already stated, we're red flag streets, which means a fire engine cannot come up the street unless the cars are moved. So imagine all these trucks trying to get through. The narrow streets just doesn't make it. Vehicles often have to back up to let cars come through because 2 cars are not going to fit on most of these streets. It's just a problem. I hope you'll consider the safety and the potential damage that this is going to cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda Peters, Meg Coulter, and Ethel Rhodes.
The haul route we are appealing is to accommodate a soon-to-be estate described by this small businessman as requiring an estate manager. He is looking for help for a soon-to-be estate. An ideal candidate is sought for an estate manager position for a high-end residential compound in Los Feliz, etc., onto estate management team, vendors, contractors, and others. This estate operates like a 5-star hotel with entertaining, pet care, transportation, automobile maintenance, etc. Managing household and grounds staff of 5 or more, including a personal assistant, maintenance technicians, housekeepers, landscapers, and others. I won't go on, but this doesn't sound like an appropriate permit, nor do we want a haul route to make it a real-life event. Thank you.
Thank you. Meg Coulter, Ethel Rhodes, Harold Slayton or Slater. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, and I will continue with things. I live at the intersection of Glencairn and Catalina. Glencairn is a 1-block long block dead-end street. 18 homes are on it. We have no other egress or access except on Catalina. This becomes a nightmare for us. The original permit as issued is for a single-family dwelling with landscaping, trellis, deck, and pool. It's always been singular, pool. How did this slide to 4 pools? His kitchen and prep kitchen are nearly the size of my house. I went this morning because I had taken pictures from my front yard. He's directly across the canyon from me. A few weeks ago, they had a party there. Sound carries in the hills. We could hear for about 5 blocks around.
There you go. Okay, thank you. Your time is up, ma'am. It's 1 minute to speak.
Well, I would also add that we were not only not apprised of these meetings, those of us who knew they were going to happen were told only 2 or 3 people could attend.
Okay.
And the councilman's office or his representative refused to attend. They were invited to our meetings in our homes.
Okay. Thank you. Ethel Rhodes.
Hello, I'm one of over the 200 people that have signed this petition to against the haul route on this development. And we wished that the scale be reduced from 8,500 cubic yards of dirt removed to 4,500 cubic yards. I resent Chaz Dean as being represented as a small businessman who simply has 7 homes in this historic area and is simply building a 16,500 square foot home, 8,000 of which is considered a basement and so falls into yet another loophole or an exploited clause. It wouldn't happen again. I will just finally say we're not alone. Cities across the U.S. are resisting these oversized developments and developers who are defacing our historic neighborhoods as well as subjecting the neighbors, the environment, and the roads with major damage and impact in exchange for what? I think it should be a time of environmental awareness, a time of sharing our community, and a time of not overwhelming all with the needs of a few or one.
Thank you. Harold, Patricia Daly, Gary Arakelian.
Good afternoon. Council members, thank you very much for letting me speak for a moment. I'm one of the 200 people that signed the petition against the haul route and asking that the scope of this project be reduced. It's, as people have said, it's 4 times the average size of homes up there. But the thing I think that maybe I'm most concerned about is the safety issues and the fire issues. We've had a fire up, I think you all probably remember the fire we had in the Griffith Park area. That was a devastating fire and could have been much worse had we not been able to get access for protection. So we're really talking about it's a very one-sided parking area. These are tiny streets that are going up. This haul route is whoever's approving this is really not driving this route to actually look at what we're up against here. The people that are unhappy are really not complaining for no reason. We're really worried about the safety of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Patricia Daly, Gary Arakelian, Arthur Golding.
I'm reading a letter from Alex and Lou Gulshan. To whom it may concern, we are not able to attend today's meeting, but want to share a few of our concerns and hesitations about the project at hand, especially because of the experience we had with Chaz Dean's prior constructions. They are, in fact, sandwiched between multiple properties of his and have had no show of any good traits of character or of concern for the neighbors, despite whatever assurances he has given. We had trucks blocking our driveway and could not get access in or out at times. This was even more difficult with newly licensed, unexperienced teens driving up and down the narrow hill. We had trucks actually park in our driveway without permission when we got home and could not access our own house for long periods of time. We had several trucks parked along the entire street, not allowing any parking for us or my guests at all hours and days of the week. Often, trucks or trailers and bulldozers, along with other dangerous equipment, remained parked on the side of our house, on the street, or over the weekend. Our curb, which was newly painted and repaired, was damaged. This was not a one-time occurrence, but was rather a pattern of carelessness. Since there was no sidewalk, the construction team accessed the property via walking all over our plants and shrubs, flattening and ruining almost all of them. Debris and other construction material was caused many flat tires. Basically, so much debris, so much damage that he never repaired, despite whatever assurance he had given in the past.
Thank you.
So how are you going to assure that this one doesn't do the same to even more?
Thank you. Gary Arakelian, Arthur Golding.
Before I begin, may I pass out photos?
Sure, you could give those to the clerk. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gary Arakelian. I live directly across the street at 2970 Glendower Avenue. The reason why I'm very emotional is because this plan has apparently been in place for 4 years, but yet today, this morning is the time I found out about this hearing. I've received no notice of any hearings or any other requests in June, July, whatever dates you've met. Procedurally, something is wrong here. How could someone living across the street not receive notice? Mr. Dean had a dream home. He built it a couple years ago. The photos I'm showing you is the conditions I lived through directly across the street. They agreed to pay me. They didn't make any payments. They didn't even thank me. They got mad at me when I asked them to remove their debris. Please look at this. This is a toilet, a porta potty, ray bars. This is left on the street overnight for a period of 2+ years. The safety issue, the liability on me, on my family, and myself.
Thank you, sir.
If I may make my last point, please.
Sure.
I just found out about this, and according to the reason why we're here is because of the, I'm sorry.
Okay, sir, we usually allow people additional time to finish up their
I
thought or
understand,
their
but
sentence.
I've been given less than 1 minute with no notice. And
Okay.
according to this, I just found out we're here for the State of California Governmental Quality Exemption under 15332. That states approval would not result in any significant, unless there's any significant effect to traffic, noise,
Thank you,
air
sir.
quality, dust. You've heard nothing but all of those before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Arthur Golding. Arthur Golding.
Left and ceded his time to me. Oh, you're back. I'm so sorry.
And that's a perfect example. Why do we don't allow people to cede their time? That we usually don't because we don't know if that person allowed that other person to speak or not. So, okay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for hearing us today. I'd like to bring up the point that the conditions that are agreed to or imposed on this project, we have no way of really knowing that they're going to be enforced, that they will actually happen. And this applicant and his builders in the past, as has just been explained to you, have basically flouted that kind of regulation and requirements. So one thing that we would like to ask you to impose is a requirement that a daily log be kept of the arrival and departure time of each truck at the site, that log be posted daily to a website to be maintained by the project team. And finally, I'd just like to say, council persons, that you are not obligated to ratify the decision of the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners. You can reduce the amount of allowable material to be exported. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Archinaco. And Mr. Archinaco, before you begin your time of 1 minute, the reason I asked our officers to escort you out is because we do not allow people to just come up to the podium when other people are speaking. When you did that, I started speaking and you disrupted me and raised your voice, and I thought you were disrupting the meeting. We do, however, give warnings to people when they disrupt the meetings for the first time. We'll consider that a warning. And you, as an attorney, know why we have those rules, because if people just could come up and do that, we will not have a meeting where we could hear everyone out and allow people to express themselves when they have the floor. So the irony here is that I had asked the person to finish her thought, and you came up asking that she finish her thought. So we usually do allow people to finish their sentence or thought after the time is up. So you have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. First, I want to point out who Chaz Dean is, in case this council does not know. He's recently paid a $26.3 million settlement to 6 million women. 6 million women whose hair may be falling out because of his products. That's more than the $25 million that Donald Trump paid in his Trump University case. He's currently under investigation by the FDA. He has been cited for illegally grading the hillside in the past. He is a public menace, and he is building a public menace, as evidenced by everyone here. Number two, in 2011, I purchased my home. In 2012, I did a renovation. I was not allowed to extend the deck 1 foot. My house is 6,000 square feet. I couldn't extend my decks 1 foot because of compliance with the hillside ordinance. Yet, someone has found a way to construct a 17,500 square foot home with a movie theater on the roof. The third point, and this is the federal one that you should all very carefully consider when making this decision. P22 is a federally protected animal, so much so that when he was found in our house, my wife and I's house, and we appeared on 60 Minutes over the matter, that we were told by the federal government that if any harm had come to him during the process, we would be responsible for it. As a result, the federal
Thank you.
government extends a great amount of resources to protect this animal, and his safety and wellness should be considered. Thank you for
Thank you.
your attention.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment on this item. Planning staff, if you could, staff, can you come up? I think it's building and safety staff, correct? What's before us is a hauling route. A lot of other matters were brought up here, but what we are considering is an appeal filed on the granting of a hauling route. Now, on the issue of public safety, some individuals brought up the issue of fire trucks not being able to access this. Will this haul route pose any additional danger with respect to that in your analysis?
So prior to hauling, the applicant is required to contact the fire department and notify them prior to any hauling activity. And so then the fire department has warning in advance so that they can get around that, and they'll have a contact person that they can call if there's any activity and they would need them to clear out.
Okay, and so do we feel there's adequate protections on that?
Yes.
Does this affect at all the hillside ordinance?
No, so they're grandfathered into the old hillside, and that's why they have so much grading that they're allowed to do, and it doesn't have anything to do with the haul route.
Okay, but it's not the haul route, that's at the actual project where the hillside ordinance
Right.
affects, the grading on the project, but not the route.
Right, so we
okay.
can't restrict on the cubic, or the size of the house or anything like that that people are bringing.
Got it. And on notice, there were at least 2 individuals who mentioned that they did not receive notice about this. I assume they heard through their neighbors, but didn't receive something at home.
So we sent out a notice for 300-foot radius, and I do see a label for, what was the name of the individual? Was it Arkelian?
Yes.
There is a label for that we sent out.
All right, and finally on enforcement, there's been additional conditions, et cetera, but do we have sufficient enforcement to make sure that the additional requirements are, because obviously the Building and Safety Department with Department of Transportation and everyone else, if there's a haul route that's proposed, they are familiar with what needs to be done, but when we add additional conditions, sometimes they may or may not be aware of those. So how do we enforce that?
So those, so with the additional conditions, those are posted on the plans, and so the deputy grading inspector does have that available to him at the site, and then the grading inspector then will check the logs that are kept by the deputy grading inspector to make sure that everything's in order, and there's contact information for the grading inspector on the site that will be posted, and that's a condition now that we generally put on all of the haul routes, so that if they see any violations, they can call that person and he or she will go out and inspect.
And do we have a log of all the trucks going up and down?
Yes, that's what the deputy grading inspector is supposed to keep track of, and that's hired by the applicant.
Okay, so individuals in the community that wish to know what is going up and what's going down, how do they know? I mean, do we have a website that's available, or is that they would need to go to that individual there?
They would need to go to that individual.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Blumenfield.
Most of my questions were answered, but do we have a mechanism to impose the cost associated with the haul routes, wear and tear on our streets?
So street
how does that work?
services, yes, so street services requires them to post a bond for any damage that would happen to the streets. So that's through street services. They determine the amount based on the quality of the street as is, and then they are responsible to do an inspection after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move that we grant in part and deny in part the appeals and adopt the revised conditions submitted by the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners and the additional conditions submitted by Council District 4. Any objection to that motion? Seeing none, so ordered. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our items. We have public comment, correct?
Correct, Council.
Okay. We have Leah Mesmick. Leah here? Not here? Herman.
So you all heard it. The attorney that was chased out without a warning, multiple item comment is such a fucked up rule. That's why it's out of order and out of disarray. Because most of the people here submitted a multiple item comment and they're denied access to speak. So on their behalf, with all courtesy and respect, fuck you, Plum. Fuck you for all these conditions, fuck you for all these declarations, and fuck you for fucking up our communities with all these trucks and all these environmental impacts that you have no regard for. So take it up the ass like our mayor. Correct yourself, do something with yourself, but check yourself out. The next time you have a drink in Boyle Heights with Jose Huizar, the same way I would say to any one of you, fuck you and fuck your constitutional rights up the ass.
Thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure. We have some cards that were submitted under this item. I'm not sure if they're intended for the public comment area. Melinda Peters, or is that for number 7? Public comment, general public comment. Patricia Daly, general public comment. This is general public comment on items not on the agenda today having to do with planning and or land use. Okay, welcome.
I understand about grandfathering and how people are in general allowed to grandfather things in. But I also understand that, you know, the way that the new ordinances are to protect neighborhoods, and it's just very disappointing not to see people who've been living in places, some of whom over 50 years, that their rights or their respect of their property is really neglected. So it's just a general public comment on that regard.
Thank you.
And if also, just one last thing, excuse me, if, you know, there are people who, if they don't follow up, or if somebody is not following the ordinances or the specific things that are made, do people have to sue the city as well in order to, you know, for having granted this permit? Is that in order? It's a question that I have. Like, when people actually sue from our side, do we sue the city? Do we sue, who gets sued in that particular moment?
I'll be happy to talk to you after this, after the meeting.
All right.
The clerk or myself or anybody else from the planning department that could answer that question. Okay, thank you. Patricia Daly, 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. Patricia Daly? That was you? Okay. Harold Slater? Joseph Kleinman, Ethel Rhodes, and Jason Archinaco. Okay, that concludes this meeting. Thank you very much.